Hello and welcome to the Dead Man Walking podcast. I am your host, repeatedly dead Fred, author of the medical trauma memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is actually what happened to me. And that's how
Really?
I got the name Repeatedly Dead Fred. Today I am here with doctor, dentist, and author David Burstein. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Fred. It's a pleasure, and I'm going to have to find out more about your story. You immediately intrigued me by what you just said.
Oh, thanks. Um, so you were referred to me by the esteemed Dave Gordon, who's
Yeah,
quite the writer himself.
yeah,
And he said, Fred, you've got to get this guy on. He's got this amazing book, which I think in the times we're in now, you know, parents need to read this book and educators need to read this book. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the book?
Okay. Well, I've been writing pithy little articles for many years on various subjects, and what's happened over the last 5, 10 years, I've been very aware of loneliness. And as a father of as a divorced dentist with 3 teenage children, I've become very aware of the topic. And when you hear, especially going through COVID, I really see that it's at an epidemic proportions. And when, again, as a father of 3 kids, and I was seeing what social media was doing to my kids, and I was worried about their development of their communication skills, I just started saying, this is not healthy. When I'd be asking my kids a question, they'd be so involved with their phones or their screens, they wouldn't even look up to me and have a conversation. And I've since realized it was more that I was dealing with an 11 or 12-year-old child than it was the technology, but still it got me to think about what's going on here. And I just realized that what's going on here is that our humanity is being sucked away by technology. And for all the good it is, like I find it amazing. Like I could take this phone, press a button, and in 3 seconds, I'm talking to somebody in Australia. But God forbid I know how to have a conversation with someone who's sitting right beside me.
Mhm. So
And again,
the irony of this is, from your profession, the jokes are that, you're the only one talking in the appointment. That
yeah,
it's all a one way. And
yeah,
now it's become a one way for an entire generation.
yeah.
Why don't you tell us the title of your book?
Okay, the title of the book is Smartphones Don't Give Hugs.
Mhm.
It's just a really basic idea that for all of the great things with technology, the point is that there's certain things that it cannot do. And human beings are social creatures, and touch is part of our essence. And this is something that the technology cannot do. We have 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. And the technology is great with sight and great with sound, but it's not smell, touch, and taste.
Mhm.
And the whole idea of being like, there's nothing like, do you know anybody in your life who doesn't enjoy getting a hug?
No.
No. And it was very interesting last night just watching the debate. People are talking about it's not, you learn more about nonverbal communication.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of the Moravian rule. It's called it's 7 38 55% rule. And there was a social psychologist in it's UCLA who did this thing about first impressions.
Mhm.
And 7% is based on what's actually said, 38% based on tone, and 55% based on nonverbal.
Mhm. That's why we get in so much trouble with emails because of the lack of nonverbal and the lack of tone.
That's right.
And
Absolutely. You got to be very, very careful the type of conversation that you have, because you end a sentence with a certain inflection in your voice, and it means a completely different opposite meaning. And the person that you're texting with just can't get it. as a matter of fact, I remember when I was going through my divorce, I was there would be times I say, hey, this is not a conversation for this medium.
Mhm. And did that work?
Yeah, because you have to really be aware of when you're writing something down, how is this going to be received?
Mhm.
And you can't assume anything. So you got to be really careful. You got to be very, very careful. It's with how the medium is used.
Well, I also find that when you get into people that like to text novels to you or have endless email chains, and especially if there's two or three or four people involved in the chain, it's almost impossible to keep track of what the issue is. It's
Mhm.
just awful. And
Yeah.
for some people it's extra awful. Um, but yeah, hugs. The only people I know that don't like hugs are some people uh, on the autism spectrum that,
Okay.
it just overwhelms them. But for the most part, people need better interaction. I
Yeah.
think we can
But
all agree on that.
one of the observations I made since the book came out is, do you know anybody who doesn't enjoy a campfire, other than someone who's, let's say, allergic to smoke?
Mhm.
Sitting around the campfire is one of the most universally enjoyed human experiences. And this is why, in many ways, when I was learning about the subject of loneliness, the guy who I learned the stuff mostly from was this guy named John Cassiopo. And he wrote a book called On Loneliness, and he was basically attributing to what went on way back in caveman days when somebody would get isolated from the group on the hunt, and then all of a sudden you went from a sense of hunting in a group to being hunted by a predator. You'd be within your just back in the village, you were being shunned socially. There was a sense of losing social contact socially. And so I started thinking about, well, what went on back in the caveman days,
Mhm.
and what is it? So you sort of say, what is it about sitting around a campfire that people love?
Mhm.
And when you start answering those questions, you sort of say, oh, that's what it means to be a human being. You sit around with other people, you're getting warmth, you're getting social communion, you're being told stories, you're being seen equally. And like then I made a comment, did you know anybody who would prefer to have a boiled hot dog rather than one that's been roasted over a fire? No,
Mhm.
it doesn't happen unless you're at a Blue Jay game or something like that. But
Your
it's just,
caveman comment reminded me of across the street from my bedroom. We have a forest. There's a couple of packs of coyotes that live there, and almost like clockwork, 10 o'clock, they do like a bed check, and you can hear them start to howl to make sure they find, all the little ones are with them.
mhm,
And if they don't find them, wow, all bedlam breaks loose and they go on a massive hunt. They're going
mhm,
everywhere looking for the little ones.
mhm. Interesting. No, it's really primal stuff. It's
Mhm.
really primal stuff. And the thing is, again, is that we're social creatures. And in many ways, what I've often thought that loneliness is actually one of the most important emotions, because it helped us become, it's what helped us advance as creatures.
Mhm.
Cassioppo also talks about, excuse me, he compares loneliness to thirst, hunger, and pain. And basically what it is, it's a sensation that's telling us that we need social contact. We need to move. And so it's not just like pain, it's a matter of whether or not pain is gratuitous. It's a matter of if you're continuously hungry, but excuse me, it's there to tell us to move, that we
Mhm.
need social connection. And that's primal to our humanity. And again, if it wasn't for loneliness, civilization would not have moved forward. But the problem is with a lot of these stuff, it's just a matter, you just don't want too much of it.
Mhm. I know a lot of people right now, they say after the lockdown and everything, they're they just have no desire to go out and socialize.
Mhm.
It's been a real amazing switch.
Yeah.
And uh but you have to force yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
when my mom was in the Winnipeg equivalent of Baycrest, we would just, Mom, you've got to go to the programs. Mom, you have to go to the program. But she was already just sucked down into that loneliness pit
Mhm.
that she couldn't force herself, even though she knew when she did it, she felt much better.
Yeah. Well, you know what? A big part of this is where technology becomes, again, I'm not a scientist, and also I just want, what's really important for me to know, even though I have a DR in front of my name, I'm not pulling a Jill Biden here. I'm specifically writing this. I'm H. David Burstein, and I specifically in the book, I say I give a medical disclaimer right at the beginning of the book because I'm just like I say in the book, I'm a citizen of the world.
Mhm.
And it's just certain things that I've learned about conquering loneliness. But the point I was going to make is what's happened with technology. It uses the hormone dopamine, which is a primary pleasure hormone. And what I mean by primary pleasure hormone is the purpose of dopamine is there for motivation and it's there for process. But what ends up happening is that when we are by ourselves and we're looking at a screen all day long, we are getting the dopamine hit from the change in the screen, of noticing the change in the screen. But unfortunately, what ends up happening, we don't have enough dopamine left to drive us through the process to get to those other hormones that are more important, like oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So most people are happy, like your mother would be happy, just okay. Listen, I'm getting enjoyment listening to this concert on my smartphone.
Mhm.
But we're social creatures.
Mhm. So let's pivot a bit and talk about the process of writing the book.
Okay.
How long did it take you, and what's the most surprising thing you found in researching?
Excuse me. Well, from start to finish, I started it in July of 2021, and it got published April 2022.
Wow, that's
Uh,
amazingly quick.
yeah, well, let's put it this way. It was, when got into it,
Mhm.
I was, I'm divorced, so I was coming home. I didn't necessarily, on days when I didn't have my kids or during the summer, it was just a matter, okay, this was my pet.
Mhm.
This was my baby that I was cultivating. And I had ideas for years. I probably had the idea about loneliness. My awareness of loneliness goes back probably 5 or 6 years, and when I think about it, well, my whole life. It's a lot of people spend a lot of time by themselves, and they don't. Sometimes you don't even realize how lonely you are
Mhm.
because you get all of a sudden you're fine, and then you get into a relationship with someone. You say, "This is life. Being by myself is being by myself is not. This is not what I meant. Like it's not good." And just a matter of picking up things. And what I would often do, like I told you, I've been writing little articles for my dental fraternity for over 30 years. And I'd be writing them on subjects that I would sort of learn something within a short period of time on the same subject from various sources. And I say something's tying these ideas together. And it just got a point that I'm realizing, hey, there's a problem with loneliness. And then one of one of the things that also sort of told me I was on the right path with this was I tell people, I ask them, like, you don't have to be, you can be an atheist and have to answer this question. In the fictional book called the Bible, what is this God's first negative observation? In
Okay.
chapter 218, so this is really, really early. God says that it's not good for the man to be alone. And then all of a sudden, you know, like, so I realized, okay, this is a solid topic.
So the solution for God for us to not be alone is to put us with somebody who initiates 80% of the divorces. There's a little funny God
Right.
humor there.
Well, yeah, there's definitely dark humor, but you know, it's really funny that I think what happens, you know, it's very interesting to watch the differences between men and women.
Mhm.
And this is a huge thing. And what's interesting is that the Hebrew is called Ezer Kenegdo, which means a helpmate opposite him.
Mhm.
And so we do need each other. We really do need each other. And actually, one of the most beautiful ideas I've picked up recently, actually not too recent, but it just hit home again with me, with especially what's going on in the Middle East. In the book, The Da Vinci Codes, right towards the end, they talk about the coming together of the international symbol for a woman is a triangle going down, and
Mhm.
the international symbol for a man is a triangle going up. You bring them together, and it makes them again David.
Mhm.
So it's
Which
all
is the
about,
Jewish star for those who aren't
yeah. So
speaking Hebrew.
the Star of David. Thank you very much. And I just thought it was just a beautiful idea about men need women, and women need men. And this is a particular. There's something, you know, with my divorce, I'm sort of realizing that I, you know, and again, I get along with my ex right now, so it's like it's, you know, we they're not perfect, but it's obviously better than it was. And you realize a great intimate relationship is the best. And actually,
Mhm.
what I do in the book, I talk about there being basically four types of lonelinesses. There's the loneliness of not knowing who we are. There's the loneliness of not having an intimate partner. There's the loneliness of not having family and friends. And there's the loneliness of not having community and purpose. And what I do is I look at all of these areas and I say, okay, what is the social energy that you're picking up from each of these? And I saw, because what I do is my origin, for lack of a better term, originality with the subject is, I look at the emotion of loneliness as a light on a social emotional fuel gauge.
Mhm.
And as much as we're feeling lonely, well, why am I feeling lonely? And you sort of say, well, as much as you concentrate on the loneliness, what you realize what you have to do is you have to try to live yourself so that you keep the needle as far to the right as possible. And the light is there to tell you that you're lonely. And but what's very important to know is that one really does not become a substitute for the other. It's not like you're going to say, geez, I'm going to go to a Blue Jay game and high five somebody when the Blue Jays hit a home run, and that makes up for the fact that I'm not going home to get a kiss from my wife. But on the other hand, you need you need the energy of social interaction. You need like, it's all, you know, like, and very few people in the world have it all.
But on Instagram, they do.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that you sort of, you know, like when someone paints too good a picture, you say, okay, what's really going on here?
Mhm.
And as a matter of fact, I'm convinced that a lot of the people with in radical politics, I want to say, I really am interested in what was your home life like? Like how many people came from dysfunctional homes? And even let's put this way, even the most intact nuclear family has issues.
Yep.
But all
I,
things being equal, the intact nuclear family is the best. And
yep.
me as a divorced dentist, I'm the first person to admit that.
I've met a number of people over the years that came from incredibly dysfunctional families. And one of the, and they just turned out to be superstars, you know, in
Mm.
almost every way,
Yeah.
professionally, socially, family. But the large majority of them don't.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so now that you're a world famous author,
Thank you very much,
and
sir.
it's hard to walk down the street, and I'm sure your practice has like got people lined out the doors because now they want to get an autograph.
Yeah.
Um, how's your family and friends receive the book?
Um, the people, it's very funny you say that because like I wrote the book for my kids
Hmm.
because I'm an older like I'm 68 years old and yet my kids are still teenagers.
Okay.
And in many ways, I realize that this is part of my ethical will towards my kids. This is I wrote this book. It's a love. I realize it's a love letter to my kids. That being the case, I wrote it 2 years ago. Do you think they've read it? They've read it. They've read it yet? Of course not. But they would say to me, Dad, why do we have to read it? You talk about this stuff all the time. Anyways, we got all the big messages. But um, I've also found that it's a very heartwarming idea that God willing, in 50 years, my son can show his son, hey, this is a book that your grandfather wrote.
Hmm.
And there's a sense of and a sense of as much as I'm, for lack of a better term, leaving behind my kids, leaving behind this book was very important. As a matter of fact, Fred, one of the big ideas I have in the book is I'm a very serious Reform Jew.
Hmm.
And many years ago, like I said to you before about the Bible, there's a line early in the Bible where it says, "Let us create man in our image." Well, if God is invisible, what does it mean to be created in His image? Well, what does God do? To act like God. Well, if you look into why Jews celebrate the Sabbath, there's two specific reasons. God created the world, and God brought the Jews out of Egypt. So I say, well, how does that translate to me as a human being? It says, David, be positively creative and help bring others to freedom. Next topic. And if you can literally uh, have those as like, I'm realizing as a paradigm of your existence, am I being creative? Am I being positively creative at this moment? Am I helping another person at this moment? And all of a sudden, you sort of get this feeling, hey, I'm needed. I'm useful. And as much as so much of a big message of the book that you're asking me about the revelation, you deal with your own loneliness by being there to serve others. And of all of the things in loneliness, you want to improve our communication skills. And the number one skill we have to improve is to become a better listener. So basically, be present and shut up. That's how you fight loneliness. You know what
One
I mean?
mouth, two ears.
I'm sorry.
One mouth, two ears.
That's right.
So, and
And
just to be clear, a moment ago, I don't believe you were actually saying that the Bible says, David, go out and do something positive. You weren't quoting from the Bible. You were just saying the
yeah,
message to
that's
yourself.
my takeaway. That's right.
Yeah.
My takeaway. And again, see, I'm not see the thing is the emotion of loneliness, it's just an emotion. It's what you do with it, and it's how you have it in a properly measured amount. And again, like the basic messages of the book, it's not like I'm saying anything so profound.
Hmm.
And what I do at the end of the book, one of the scenes that really affect me, I don't know if you remember the end of the movie Field of Dreams.
Vaguely.
Okay, well, look this up. As a matter of fact, what I do is there's a reference to the final scene of the movie Field of Dreams when the Kevin Costner character says to his father, "Hey, Dad, do you want to have a catch?" And the final scene of the movie, he's throwing a baseball back and forth with his father.
Mhm.
And it's a metaphor for, it's like you want to, you're, as much as we want the big stuff, it's you want those moments in which you are connecting with another person as an equal. And the whole, what's so interesting too, for a lot of boys, their maturity into manhood is about making connection with their father. And you know, you go from, you know, when your kid's 3 years old, okay, you toss the baseball back and you know, here, son. And then as you go older and you get all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden your kid's 12, 13 years old, and you say, holy shit, he's throwing it back pretty hard.
Mhm.
And there's this whole, you know, there's this whole symbiotic relationship. And again, one of the things with loneliness I really find is that boys' relationship with their father is huge. And as much as we want to be like, we want to be loved by our father, our mother, we want to be respected by our mother. And one of the, it's funny, you asking me before about one of the things that prompted me is that many years ago, I was having this conversation with a girlfriend of mine, and she was talking about her boyfriend who has since become her husband, and they have a wonderful marriage. She said, well, she said he has issues with his mother. And then I said, you know, it's more important to me to have the respect of my father than it is to have the love of my mother. Now, whether it's true, I don't know. But the idea came out of my head. And I think in men and boys being much more macro focused out in the world, men want to be respected in the outside world. They know they have the love of the mother back home. And like, and I think this is what a lot of women don't want. You know, the last thing a woman wants to hear, the boy, a man, the guy they're dating is a mama's boy.
Mhm.
And when you, so again, so like we're talking before about that social energy, you want the social energy that you're respected within the community. You want your social energy that you know that you're loved at home. I have a thing because circumstances in my life that I always thought I was dumb because I had two female cousins who were born the same year as me who were smarter, and they both accelerated and I didn't accelerate. So I thought I was the dumb one. So I've always had this thing that I've had to prove that I'm smart.
Mhm.
Like I'm 68 years old and it's like, what's my problem? But this is the way it is. And in certain ways, uh, this book has, you can't be stupid and write a book.
Mhm.
It's very difficult. You can be wrong about ideas, but I think you listen. I don't have to tell you what like the effort that's involved in writing a book. This is a tremendous discipline to
Mhm.
produce this thing, and it's
Mhm.
something that I'm very proud of.
Why don't you
And
show us the book?
oh, okay, here it is.
And I'm guessing this is available on Amazon.
Available at Amazon, yeah.
Okay.
And the funny thing is that unfortunately, it's really geared towards teenagers and young adults.
Mhm.
But the problem is that the topic of loneliness is not something most people want to admit to.
Mhm.
And so I again like because again if you say to somebody I'm lonely, oh you must be a loser. And it's a matter of how do we sort of take these emotions, read them properly. What is this telling me? And go with it. There's a story I tell in the book about how many years ago I was at the Y getting ready to go. I was in the change room, and I saw a friend of mine about to take his 6-year-old son, who now is 43 years old, but his 6-year-old son for a swim. And seeing the two of them together, I became very envious. And I was smart enough to sit back and say, whew, where's that coming from? And I realized, David, you want to be a father. And what's really interesting about our emotions, we are not our emotions, but our emotions are gateways to our soul.
Mhm.
Same way that why do we laugh? Why did we laugh so hard at a joke, or sometimes a scene in a movie gets us more than others? Like, let's put it this way. I hope you get to watch that final scene from Field of Dreams.
Mhm.
I can't watch that scene without crying. And Fred, I was very fortunate. I practiced dentistry with my father, so I had a really good relationship with him. And yet, the fact that I still cry at that scene says, God, that was such an important relationship to me. And now I get a double whammy because now, well, my father's died a few years ago.
Mine as well.
And he made it to 93, but right now I have this relationship with my sons. And you want to hear a funny story? I know this is a bit of a diversion, but
Yeah.
I
We have about 3 minutes. So
okay. Anyways, there's the guy who said that anybody should watch that scene. That scene should be a scene for American citizenship, and if you don't cry, you don't get in.
Mhm.
Anyways, but I'm very happy with the book. I go through importance of improving our communication skills, importance of nonverbal communication. One of the great lines my sister once gave, she said, girls will observe life the way a man watches a baseball game. Knowing, understanding hormones, understanding how we react to fear and change, looking for people who want the best for us, being our own best friend. Like it's all really, really living a balanced life. It's a matter of trying to have a nice balanced life, getting as much social energy as you can, knowing that we're living with ourselves. It's really get to know ourselves. Because I think, again, there's a huge thing. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely.
very true. Very true. So, David, if people want to get a hold of you to have you maybe speak at an event or
I'd love
do a
to.
book reading, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I guess you can email me at hdburstein@rogers.com. That's HDBURSTEIN @rogers.com. Or my cell number is 416-576-8587.
And if they have a dental problem, same.
No, I keep the two separate. But to talk to me, I'm on the internet if you need me for dentistry. But it's
Okay.
it's good. It's really basic, no nonsense stuff, and that's what I'm proud of. And I really it's an accomplishment. And the thing is, one of the things that also really prompted me to write the book is I was very aware of what people wearing masks were doing. We were
Mhm.
deprived of the primal affirmation of our humanity is the smile.
Mhm.
And for 2 years, we were denied a smile. And I realized that what bothered me again, they say one of the essential ingredients for happiness is to be grateful and to know how to say thank you. But if you didn't recognize somebody, how could you say thank you to someone with whom you don't even know what they look like?
Mhm.
So I was really obsessed with masks. And the example I use, I say that the people say, oh, no, I could look at your eyes. And I know, I said, at the sound of not being able to see the human smile is this, and looking their eyes is like the sound of one hand clapping. You need to smile. It's like, it's like, what do you mean there are only two sexes? Well, like the type of person who would say you don't need a smile is the same type of person who says, well, there really aren't two sexes. It's like, to me, it's almost that ridiculous.
Mhm.
But can people exist without seeing another person smile? Of course you can, but give me a break. If you like very often, and you sometimes meet somebody, they say, what's going on in your life that you're so miserable? That you're so unhappy that you're like, how the hell did you come to that conclusion?
Mhm. Well, I, for one, am thankful and grateful that you decided to share your wisdom and your book with us.
Okay,
And
well,
uh,
this was
one
great.
very quick question.
Yes,
Are you a chin up or a pull up guy? Just because I see your bar and yours.
that's my son. I can't even do one right now.
Me
I,
either.
no,
Okay.
that's great.
Well,
Anyways,
thank you again, David.
this was wonderful. You know what? I find this is really good for me because I want to get confident in spreading the word about this epidemic, and it's a matter of trying to present it in a way that it's not a downer.
Mhm.
It's part of our humanity. Would you want to say we could never get thirsty? We could never get hungry. We would never feel any pain. Would you never feel lonely? And in many ways, when you're lonely, you sort of get a depth of, I don't want to be here. So what do I have to do to get out of it?
Yep. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, for tuning in to the Dead Man Walking podcast. Please
Thank you,
like,
Fred.
subscribe, and share, and look up David's book and share his book. It's got a lot of wisdom in it that'll make the world a slightly better place. Thanks.
Slightly
See you
happier
next
place.
episode.
Thank you very much, Fred.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
That was good. Bye-bye.